Hello mamas, Laura here, and today we are chatting about fear in childbirth and how this can affect a woman's journey through this powerful transition. Enjoy!
Hey mama, I'm sending you wonderful pregnancy vibes. It's time for you to guide you through. Let's take some time for you. It's Pregnancy with Physio Laura.
Hello mamas, and welcome back to the Pregnancy with Physio Laura podcast. Today we're kicking off with the third episode in this Yoga and Doula series, delving into why there is so much fear in childbirth and how fear can affect a woman during pregnancy and birth. Now, this is episode 3 of a 5-part Yoga and Doula series with the beautiful doula and yoga and meditation teacher, Louise Maguire. Today, Louise chats in depth about how fear can cause a pain and tension cycle in the body, which can then make birth much more challenging. She also discusses how the medicalisation of birth has caused us to fear birth and feel disempowered about our ability to birth. And finally, she also gives us some great tools and tips to eliminate this fear and think more positively and confidently about birth. And if you haven't already listened to the first 2 episodes in this series, please go back and listen to them because we do discuss the role of the doula in pregnancy, birth, and the postpartum period. And this may help any woman who is fearful of childbirth to understand where she can seek more support and guidance if she needs to. Now, there is still so much amazing content coming up in this Yoga and Doula series. So if you haven't already, be sure to subscribe to the Pregnancy with Physio Laura podcast so that you don't miss out. In this Yoga and Doula series, we'll be chatting about how yoga and meditation can help you during pregnancy, how to practice more mindfulness in your everyday life, and ways in which you can connect deeper with your baby while still in utero. And we also have our bonus meditation exclusively available to members inside the Pregnancy Posse, where Louise talks us through this beautiful pregnancy meditation that you can use at any stage throughout your journey. This entire podcast series and all our other podcast series, along with our exclusive member-only content, is all live right now inside the Pregnancy Posse. So if you'd love to access all the bonus material and listen to or watch this entire series right now, rather than waiting for any future episodes to come out, please do go and check out the Pregnancy Posse. I have taken my years of experience as a women's health physiotherapist helping pregnant and postnatal women and turned it into an easy to understand and easy to use online program. So when you join the Pregnancy Posse, I guide you week by week through your pregnancy with safe weekly workouts tailored to your exact week of pregnancy. I also do a weekly Q&A session where I answer every single question from my wonderful Posse members so that you don't have to go Googling everything. And there is also a beautiful community forum where members support each other. And lastly, we have this huge, amazing resources library. So again, you don't have to keep Googling all of your symptoms and questions. Now, I would love to help you have a healthy, active, pain-free pregnancy. So just head over to thepregnancyposse.com to see what the Pregnancy Posse is all about. Now, let's get into episode 3 of our 5-part Yoga and Doula series. This is a great chat for all women, whether you feel you have fear around childbirth or not, because it's so important to understand how fear can manifest itself physically and emotionally during pregnancy and birth. Enjoy! Let's switch now and talk about fear in childbirth. So I know this is a real passion of yours to try and understand and educate women on why we might be fearful and how we could overcome that using specifically for you yoga and meditation. I know are some big tools that you use. And I recently ran a challenge for my Pregnancy Posse members, and I invited them to email me with their top 2 or 3 fears or worries that they had around pregnancy, labor, and being a mum. And I was shocked at how many women doubted their ability to birth or had fears specifically around tearing. That seemed to be a big one that was popping up. So I definitely do see that there is a lot of fear about childbirth. So why do you think we are so fearful?
Yeah, I think it stems back to the medicalisation of childbirth. So like I kind of said, it used to be centuries ago just super normal to, have your baby at home, just have women around you, and not much help was needed. And then it kind of became a bit more medicalized, and really obstetricians kind of began obstetrics, I mean to say, began with kind of just like, I guess, a little bit of experimentation. And I don't want to negatively talk about obstetricians, because at the moment I think what they do is absolutely incredible, and we obviously really, really do need the medical system in certain circumstances. But yeah, it kind of just did start in a bit of a funny way, and there was a lot of experiments being done, and cesareans were done without anaesthetic. There was procedures being done without any understanding of aseptic techniques, and it just kind of, I think there was a stage maybe within 5 or 10 years, midwives were delivering, let's say, like 50 to 60% of babies, and then it dropped down to like 15%. So it's just like really drastic how this kind of just took over. And that just kind of became a bit of the way that it was for quite a while, until about like the 60s, and that kind of feminine uprising started happening. And it was around then as well that Lamaze birthing, is that how you say it? Lamaze?
Yes, I know what you're talking about. I'm not sure the exact pronunciation.
Yeah, so they were one of the first kind of organizations to start teaching women about birth, and kind of saying, this is what's going to happen, rather than just like literally following the orders and going in and you lay down and you put your legs up and they do whatever, because that's the way it was. And episiotomies were just standard procedure, no matter what was going on. That's what they would do. So that started happening. And what else? The active birth movement kind of took place, I think, around the 60s and 70s as well. And also there was one Dr. Dick Grantley Reed, and he wrote that book, Childbirth Without Fear. I'm trying to think when that was written, but it was around the same time anyway. And he, I think he was initially kind of dissed for his research and his writings, but then people started to kind of realize, wow, it's actually like what he's saying makes a lot of sense. And if I'm not so scared, my body's not going to be so tense, and I won't have as much pain. And women really started taking back their birth. And there's that phrase, women of the earth, take back your birth.
It sounds like a good protest slogan.
Yeah, exactly. And that's kind of the way it all kind of came about. And it was interesting because the active birth movement, I think her name is Janet Velasquez, and she kind of founded that movement a little bit on the theories of yoga as well, and breathing and moving and staying upright, and like working with your body, opening up your pelvis, and not just completely disconnecting to what's happening within you. Really, really stay present and stay connected to your baby, and remember what it is that you're doing. So I'm trying to remember what the initial question was here. But
No, that was really good, because we're talking about the history of fear in childbirth, and why we were fearful. We obviously still are, a lot of women these days. I wonder, do you have any great resources or books or things that you recommend to your clients that come to you and say, I'm petrified of childbirth? Like obviously yoga and meditation and your personal counselling, but is there any great resources out there that women listening to this could go and find?
Yeah. I think, within that, I kind of also want to start by saying that these fears that come up, as much as we kind of say, the fear can create the tension and it can create more pain, I think it's really important to actually use your fears and explore your fears, rather than just kind of saying, oh, I shouldn't have these fears, I'm going to get rid of them and forget about them and push them aside. That's not what I mean. I actually think you should really, really delve into those fears. I'm trying to think of resources, but what I would probably say is to, do some journaling, honestly, and like do some inner exploration is probably more important than reading books. But in saying that, watching a lot of positive birth videos, which there is a lot of on YouTube, and I really love the hypnobirthing book by Marie Mongan. There's also, what's that book by Sarah Buckley? You
Oh,
know,
the Juju Sundan.
gentle, no, gentle birth, gentle mothering, I think it is.
Oh, Sarah Buckley, the GP. Yes.
Yeah.
Um, yes, something along those lines, but that's meant to be quite good. I've heard good reviews.
Yeah. Gentle birth, gentle mothering by, yeah, Dr. Sarah Buckley. I'm pretty sure. Yeah. That's a really great one. I love Rhea Dempsey's book. That was one of the first books I read on childbirth.
Do you remember what
What is
that's
that
called?
called? Birth with Confidence.
That's right. Yes.
And she recently wrote another book as well, which I'm really excited to read. My sister is currently pregnant and she's reading a book called How Feminists Give Birth. And I'm really looking forward to reading that. She said it's crazy, so interesting. Yeah, so I guess it's more kind of if you think about, you know, where birth was a few decades ago, and even if you were to ask your mothers, most of the time it was pretty, you know, disempowering experience for them, unfortunately. And you know, we know that we carry that in ourselves, and it's not just, you know, it's not just this new experience that we're having and we're going to do this. You actually have that imprint of your own birth and maybe what your mother's birth was. And it's really, really great idea to explore what happened in the births that your mother had, or maybe before that, and kind of unpack that a little bit as well. Yeah.
I like what you said. Rather than just thinking, I've got a fear, okay, let's load me up with information to overcome that and suppress that and, you know, find positive outcomes. And I think that's all really good. But I like what you said about actually leaning into that fear, really delving into it, because I guess you can't really unpack it properly with just pushing a whole heap of positive solutions on top of it. You need to work out, where's that fear coming from? What is that fear really about? So you can then work through it properly. So as scary and as hard as that is, and that's really just life, isn't it? Like leaning into discomfort in general,
Absolutely.
is probably the best way to go about it. And I agree, in my own practice, journaling is so helpful. Some of the things that come out on paper shock me. Like, was I really thinking about that? Obviously that's on my mind, but I wouldn't have ever been able to articulate that until I put pen to paper. So
Absolutely. Your inner voice is so powerful, and you have that inner goddess, you know, like within you, and she has answers for you, because like I keep coming back to, these experiences are just so individualized and so unique that, like, you know, it is great to get those resources and to watch other people's births, but really, really just going so internal and figuring out, yeah, what's coming up for you and how to explore it. I think that's one of the most important practices, like you said, not just for this childbearing years, but just for life in general. Yeah.
Yeah, I love that. And just lastly, speaking about fear in pregnancy and birth, you mentioned that fear could potentially create more tension, more pain. Could you just delve into the ways in which mentally and physically fear can be like impacted for pregnancy and birth, how it can impact your experience?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I mentioned just earlier there that fear, tension, pain cycle, and that was actually that Dr. Dick Grantley Reed that came up with that years and years ago. You know, realizing that if we have these anxieties in our head, and it's easy to relate to normal life. You know, if you're stressed out, your shoulders are tense. They're up here around your ears, and that's causing pain. And then of course you're going to get more stressed out, and that's going to continue, and that's how it's that little bit of a cycle. And it's the exact same, you know, when it comes to pregnancy and birth. If you're really in that fear mindset, if you're really letting the adrenaline kind of take over, then it's just going to create more tension. And as we kind of said with that word surge, instead of contraction, we want the body to be opening, not tensing up. And I think, yeah, just to really remind yourself that it is an opening, and it's not all, we want it to be as relaxed as possible. If you can just imagine the cervix itself, you know, it's a sphincter, it's got a lot of muscle and fibers in there. It's very much connected to the rest of the body. And the more you can keep all of the rest of your muscles relaxed, the more you can keep your mind calm, the more that's just going to open and relax and let the baby move through easier. Yeah.
And we know that there's a neuromuscular connection between the jaw and the pelvic floor. So for those who are like, that translate, well, we know, there's actual science that says if you're really tense in your jaw, if you're biting your teeth and really holding a lot of tension, then you're naturally going to be more tense in your pelvic floor. And that's where that whole concept of horse lips that is really important. Yeah. And I think that's a really good one to teach partners as well, to, if you notice your birthing partner, your pregnant lady, I always say pregnant lady, it sounds so matronly, but if you notice that she's doing a lot of this, like to remind her to relax, because it is related to down there. So I really love that.
Yeah. So, and I always really try to guide the women as well, like especially if they are getting a cervical exam, like rather than like, okay, this thing is happening and we may not have wanted this to happen, for example, and here I am in the bed where I wasn't sure I would be, and I'm just like, remember, like, this is just a muscle. Breathe, stay calm, visualize it opening. Like, the connection with your mind and your body is just, there's so much to it that we don't realize. And if you can really, really use that to work in your favor, like, I promise it will go a long way.
Hey mamas, Laura here. I would love to know if this episode has helped to allay any fears that you may have had about childbirth. It is unfortunately very deeply ingrained in our culture to be scared of childbirth, to be scared of the quote unquote pain of childbirth, and we are not often surrounded with positive messages of birth, peaceful messages of birth, or stories about functional pain in childbirth and how this pain is different to pathological pain. So we should be encouraged to work with this pain and not to fear it or avoid it. So I really love this topic and helping women to embrace this journey and not to fear it. So I hope that you also got a lot out of today's episode. And if you'd like to learn more from Louise, you can find her on Instagram at Louise_Maguire_. And I would also love to hear from you over on my socials at PhysioLaura, and let me know your favorite learnings from this episode and whether you walked into your first pregnancy and birth with or without fear. Now, in the next few episodes of this Yoga and Doula series, we'll be chatting with Louise about how yoga and meditation can positively influence your pregnancy, how to practice more mindfulness during your pregnancy, and ways that we can connect more with our babies. Now, if you haven't already, just subscribe to the Pregnancy with Physio Laura podcast so you don't miss any of our upcoming episodes in this series. And if you love today's episode and you want to dive right into the next 2 episodes in this Yoga and Doula series, you can find this entire series along with all our other podcast series live right now inside the Pregnancy Posse. For most series of the podcast, remember, we also record exclusive bonus content for members only. And in the bonus member-only episode for this Yoga and Doula series, Louise guides us through a beautiful 6-minute meditation to help you connect with yourself and your baby. Inside the Pregnancy Posse, you'll also find those weekly guided pregnancy workouts, an extensive resources library on things like birth prep, pelvic floor exercises, and managing pelvic pain, plus a wonderful community forum and weekly Q&A sessions with me. Now, I would love to help you have a wonderful pregnancy, birth, and postnatal journey. So just visit thepregnancyposse.com to see what the Pregnancy Posse is all about. I will catch you soon for episode 4 in this 5-part Yoga and Doula series, where we'll be chatting about the benefits of yoga and meditation in pregnancy. And until then, mamas, sending you wonderful pregnancy vibes and enjoy the incredible journey that is pregnancy.